Fastest YouTube I've ever done in my life. 4 of you in 5 minutes. I gave you 5-minute heads up. This has been a really long day. All 4 of you, why don't you type in your chat, say hi. I don't know who you are. Let me see. Anybody? Bueller. 3 of you. You're there. You could just write. No one's going to be upset if you show yourself on the side. Nobody. Nobody's going to type. All right. I'll talk to myself. So Twitter has, oh, there we go. I break kids' legs, my favorite. Are you going to ask me why I do expected value? Anyway, Twitter filed its lawsuit. Look. We all knew the lawsuit was going to be very damning because he has no case whatsoever. Literally no case. Okay. That's never been the question here. The question has just been 2 things. And I've learned a lot more since even my last YouTube on Sunday or Saturday. I think it was Sunday. Okay. You have to ask yourself just 2 questions. One, is the board rational? And does the board think Elon Musk is above the law? And does the judge think Elon Musk is above the law? That's it. Those are your 2 questions. If the judge and the board think Elon Musk will be subject to law, contract law, I should say, just like anybody else would, then this closes at 5420. Okay. The only other option that could happen here is that there's a settlement. Assuming what I first said, if they both believe that Elon Musk is not above the law, there could be a settlement for a small price cut so that the board has certainty and the employees have certainty quicker than later. Small price cut, I've always thought was $2, $3. I think the most it would ever be would be a $47 to $49 level, but I think it would be more likely to be 51 to 53. Okay. If you don't think Elon Musk is, if you think Elon Musk, I've been drinking a little bit. My son had surgery today. He's fine. Eye surgery. So I drink. I'd be drinking anyway, but I'm just letting you know why I'm drinking, or one of the reasons why I'm drinking. This lawsuit is filled with so many nuggets. I've only read the first 35 pages of a 60-page lawsuit, but when a judge reads this, and he'll have his retort, so there's not going to be a lot of things he's going to be able to dispute here, because most of it's just factual. Whether or not he tweeted disparagements against the company, whether he tweeted disparagements about the spam situation that isn't even true. I'm on page 37. I'm on page 31. And on 31, it reads, cognizant of its own obligations under the merger agreement, Twitter proceeded with the May 13th diligence meeting, which lasted about 2 hours. During the session, Twitter explained, among other things, that its spam estimation process entails daily sampling for a total set of 9,000 accounts per quarter that are manually reviewed. Later that day, Musk tweeted publicly a misrepresentation that Twitter's sample size for spam estimates was just 100. Also, I joked on Twitter, I think it's the first time in Delaware history that on page 33, a poop emoji has been filed into exhibit, which, it's fun to be involved with that. Will he be able to reveal bot data through discovery or no? Doesn't matter at all. If the bots end up being 20%, not 5%, that is not breakable under the merger agreement at all. Twitter said that they estimated they were under 5% and said that estimate could vary widely in its filings, and said that they used all sorts of different assumptions to get to that level. that is not a material adverse clause. He literally started doing this. Please, you're fucking kidding me. I break kids' legs. You're like this close away from being muted. First, you asked me how I came up with what expected value is, which is literally how we do investing. That's like 101, your finance 101 class. And then now you're asking me whether or not the bot situation could show up in discovery. I'm not a lawyer. I assume that since that's the main reason why he's filing a lawsuit, discovery can cover anything that he wants to think would be a material adverse clause. He's claiming fraud. So if he's claiming fraud, then I assume that he has access to whatever it is, I guess, that would pertain under that purview. I don't know. It's all made up. And it could be anything. There could be 20% bots on Twitter. And remember, it's not 20% of accounts are spam bots. It's monetizable daily active users, MDAUs. Nobody repeats this in Tesla Twitter. Monetizable. Only Twitter knows what accounts are monetizable and what accounts are not. All right. You're going on mute. Goodbye. I'll put you in a timeout. God. You people wonder why nobody has unlocked accounts and why people don't go on YouTube to take questions from people, because people are fucking, they're exhausting. People are exhausting. Don't know what to tell you. It's fun. I feel like I'm on the what's the Netflix show about the future? What's the name of the Netflix show? Is there anybody else here? Any other people? The Hour show is the futuristic show about the future. Futuristic show about the future. Each episode is different, and it's awesome. One of the best shows on Netflix. There's a way to like put somebody in mute. Black Mirror. Thank you, Bono B. I feel like I'm Black Mirror, where I have some sort of superpowers where I can tell someone to stop fucking talking to me. I mean, that is what the internet is, right? We have the power to talk, and then I guess you have the power to listen, and then I can tell you I don't want to hear from you anymore. Oh my God. All right, back to this. The reason why I wanted to do an emergency YouTube is that my biggest risk going into today, and the more I've thought about it over the last 2 days, is that the board folds for a large fine, a large fee, not 1 or 2 billion. It would have to be at least 5 billion. Okay. And the board maybe comes up with some reason to do that. They say the employees are all leaving. They have to keep the business intact in case Elon doesn't close because he's above the law. If they rule him to close and he doesn't close, how is that a good fiduciary to the shareholders? What I read in this filing, which is what we all knew already, which is why I made this position, is that this board was bullied him into this. Okay. He's a bully. And within 2 weeks of them bullying him into selling, the beginning part of this filing talks about how Elon pitched a shareholder-friendly merger agreement and how that was crux to why they should sell to him. And multiple times in this filing, it talks about the debt financing, how it's not terminable by anyone but the company. And there's no mention of anything to do with other than if covenants are breached or the company would be insolvent upon close. Because again, that will not happen. Okay, just to remind you, one of the bear cases of Twitter is that people think, one person thinks that the banks are going to back out of their financing agreement because they're going to say that the company would be bankrupt upon close if they follow through with this. He thinks this even though Elon backed out of the merger agreement 2 weeks after he signed it. That somehow the covenants went from, solvent with, 30 billion in equity and 13 billion in debt to insolvent. Basically, he's arguing that the 30 billion of equity has been erased in the 2 weeks since he signed it. And the banks would be able to have a legal reason to walk from this agreement. And what I'm telling you is that not only was that not the case yesterday, but they make it abundantly clear that Elon's pitch to sell for 54.20 was that equity and debt financing was completely and without a doubt in place, no matter what happens going forward to close. And they have an entire page about his margin loan and about how he cut his margin loan without even the permission or unbeknownst to Twitter, because he's so worried about Twitter stock price going down. But that doesn't make him less liable for the equity commitment, which is a huge point I'm trying to make here. So people think he can't close on this. He doesn't have the money. Elon doesn't have the money. He's worth $200 billion, but apparently he can't find 30 billion, which is like not even 30 billion. He needs like 20, he needs like probably 8 or 7 more billion from what he has right now. But that's, again, the bears. Elon won't have the money. A judge can't make him close if he doesn't have the money. You can't make a person buy something they don't want to buy. That's literally what Bloomberg reported. Who makes someone buy something they don't want to buy? I mean, this shit is so funny to me. He is making a mockery of everything that is merger law. Okay. This is not tweeting about funding secured and then not buying Twitter. Buying Tesla. There was no merger agreement. He didn't sign a contract with anybody. He sent a tweet that was a lie. He manipulated the public markets. The regulator fined him what they could fine him under the law. And that was it. And then he keeps launching the regulator, and the regulator doesn't fine him for it. That's not a merger agreement. There's no other party to this. Okay. I'm sure Elon also gets off parking tickets. None of this matters to this. If you think Elon is above the law in a contract with another party in Delaware, and they will have no way of making him close, or the verdict will not hold true, that means no verdict will ever hold true to any person ever again. That's it. Why does it matter how rich you are? Why do I have to close on Delaware verdict? If I buy $1 billion company and I'm worth $3 billion, I live in San Diego. I'm not worth $3 billion. I do live in San Diego. Only one of those three things is true. But my point is, it doesn't have to do with we're 200 billion, we're 10 billion, worth 5 billion. No verdict in a court case matters. It's not like we're extraditing him from Russia. He lives in Texas. It's part of America. The whole thing's crazy. The world's gotten crazy. I mean, the world's always been crazy, but the world's really gotten crazy now. And the fact that this is the explanation for why it's $34, people are trying to back into why. You know, it's much more easy to come up with an hypothesis that is rational than is irrational. And the rational hypotheses are all gone. Nobody thinks that Twitter is going to lose the lawsuit. Nobody. Not one person has said that. I have not read one person say Twitter will lose the lawsuit. I have read that the judge won't force him to close and will just fine him $1 billion. I read the banks will walk because Elon is super rich and they want his business in the future. So they will say that the company is insolvent if they close. And that will give Elon the legal right. It's true. They have a legal right. Elon has a legal right to walk if the banks do not provide the financing. Now, Twitter has the legal right to then sue the banks for the same $44 billion, because the banks are also privy to the contract. And the banks will have to prove to a court that something materially changed in the cash flow, in the Twitter, from the day they signed the deal to the day that. It's not about the revenue. It's nothing. It's a debt financing. The cash flow will have to have some sort of material adverse effect to the extent that the judge would reasonably say, you know what, bank signed this on April 28th, but on May 28th, sign it. Or today would be in July. But really, the judge would look back through all this bullshit and see this all started in the middle of May. Can the judge just make a summary during the week or some super short period of time? It's never happened before, Pavel. But I think the answer is yes. I think a judge could rule at a trial summary judgment that he has to close. Never happened before. None of this has ever happened before. But I think a judge doesn't need to order a trial. I think a judge could order summary judgment. I read that somewhere. It's crazy. Do you think it's plausible that the reason the spread is so large that there isn't enough risk? No. Okay, good question. I break kids' legs. That's a good question. And this, I hear this all the time in merger arb world. The reason why something spread is so big because there's not enough capital to close it. I firmly and strongly argue against this almost always, whether it's a small company or a big company, because we have seen plenty of times in deals with 50 or $100 billion market cap companies that have no problem closing the spread up until it closes. Now, yes, in most of those cases, it's a very low risk. So the amount of risk capital is much lower than when something is very risky like this. But to put another way, this stock had a very small spread or smaller spread the day after he announced the deal. The stock was what, 42 or 41 or whatever the hell it was, right? So there was plenty of risk capital that day to get the spread at 41. The stock, or 51, fucking 51, sorry. The stock's now 34. Now, yes, there's a different kind of risk capital that's involved in a $34 merger that has a $54 deal than a $51 merger that's a $54 deal. A very different kind of risk capital. But I am of the strong belief that this concept of absorbing the amount of billions out there is the reason why something has a big spread is bullshit. Let's use Acorn for an example. By the way, I'm arguing against my position here. Let's use Acorn for instance with Fresenius. That was just a few $1 billion deal. That had a spread of 50%, 70%, 40%. It ended up breaking. But there's plenty of situations where something is extraordinarily hairy with a $1 billion, $500 million, $2 billion market cap, and they still have some crazy, gigantic spread. Okay. And there's plenty of risk capital for that spread to be narrower because it's only a $500 million, $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion deal. But so I've heard this theory so many times in my career, and I just could not disagree with it more. Maybe on the very tiny margin, a $1 billion deal versus a $50 billion deal is going to have a larger spread because there has to be more capital that comes in. And you see that in biotech, okay? So when biotech announces a deal and it's a riskless deal and there's a 1% gross or a 2% gross or a 3% gross spread, you will see it probably a little wider in a $20 billion biotech than a $1 billion biotech. But a lot of that might be a $20 billion biotech has a better chance of having regulatory problems than a $1 billion biotech. So that's the reason why it has a larger spread. The FTC is more likely to come after it. So no, I don't believe it at all. I don't believe it at all. It's a good question. It comes all the time, and plenty of professionals in this business think that's true, is that that's the reason why these things have big spreads. So anyway, let's go back to this thing. So the debt financing is mentioned multiple times in this article, okay? And that, again, was one of my biggest concerns, and I'm alleviated by it for some reason after reading in this article, in this lawsuit, excuse me. I'm also pumped by the bullying of Elon Musk. You know, I try to put myself in the board's shoes, and people act like the board is like these feeble, wimpy, all their net worth on the line. They're going to cower to Elon because the shame and the horror if they don't. Each board member has less than 1% of their net worth in Twitter. Less than 1%, okay? They were already bullied into selling the company, and they sold it shrewdly. They literally probably all patted themselves on the back after the market collapsed and said, we did the greatest deal in the history of tech. Then this guy not only tries to back out of it, but then disparages some of them on the company he's buying. Today, they own less than 1% of Twitter as a whole. Every one of them. Jack's gone. So the rest of them outside of Silver Lake, which owns it through a convert, own less than 1% Twitter. You think these people don't want to go to war with him? There's no way, A, they're going to settle for $5 billion. And there's no way, B, Elon's going to pay $5 billion. Elon is just another form of Trump. He doesn't ever want to lose. So he loses if he writes a check and it says Elon Musk $5 billion. If he gets a $5 billion price cut, even though he's overpaying by $25 billion for the company, he tells everybody he wins. Just spend some time on the internet and see how misinformed people are. People are misinformed about everything. They still are on the internet are talking about how they can pay $1 billion to get out of this. So he'll get a $5 billion cut or a $3 billion cut, and he'll tweet about he saved $3 billion and he paid, his $20 million in lawyer fees or $50 million in lawyer fees to do it. And he won. He's a winner. He got the same company he wanted before. He saved his $3 billion or $5 billion. I'm not sure they'd even give him $5 billion in a price cut. They might take him right to court. Because why not? This is fucking awesome. Somebody posted a message on Vic that I thought was pretty genius. I thought it was really, really smart. Twitter doesn't even need its fucking employees. If you tell me, let me ask you a question, okay? Let's say half of Twitter's employees quit tomorrow. Half. 50% quit tomorrow. Assuming they're not all in the sales department. What's going to happen to Twitter? The thing's basically self-running. It's a huge social media moat that grows DMUs every year that doesn't need all the employees it has. If half the employees quit, cash flow would surge. You need a sales force. So they'll figure out, I'm sure they'll be able to hire some new salespeople. Companies are laying off people left and right in the tech world. And okay, what real long-term harm is being done right now to Twitter? Nothing. It's a great company. It's run poorly and it's way overvalued. It doesn't make any real money. But the company of Twitter, the business of Twitter, is not repeatable. How's Truth Social doing, by the way? Any of you on Truth Social? Is that exciting? An exciting platform? You can't create another Twitter. It's not possible to create another Twitter. I cannot believe the only person that's asking me questions is I break kids' legs. But I am impressed that he's back. I heard this point proposed regarding the active collision period, I guess because it's much larger. I think you could argue that with I break kids' legs, with Activision Blizzard, that spread's probably correct. It's a very long time before it closes. A year, 9 months, whatever. It's very likely it closes. The break isn't tremendous. Inflation is at 8%. So how much are you actually getting in an IRR on the ATVI spread if you use the break and you use the close price and you use whatever 9 months or day? Again, I'm not close to that spread. I know people that love it. Every ARB I know, it's their favorite spread. It's a lower risk spread because the break's not that bad. I mean, if Warren Buffett is buying 10% of something, I can assure you that the break's not that bad. He's not buying it for the close. He's buying it to own it too. So Activision Blizzard is the grandma's IRA account of merger ARB. It's not my thing. I'm sure it closes. If it does it, you won't lose a lot of money. And that's why that exists, whatever. Initially, I didn't think the board resist. Initially, I break his legs. At least speak English here. Additionally, no, you are speaking English. My apologies. Initially, didn't the board resist Elon's overtures by Twitter? Could that just have been negotiated with the board? No, they didn't know. They didn't want him to buy Twitter. They did not want him to buy Twitter. And they didn't want him to buy it at 5420. They were geniuses for agreeing to 5420. They pulled off the savviest move in tech board history. And people think they're just going to now let him walk for $5 billion. They crushed it. They're heroes. They're not going back. In fact, I'm going to buy someone right now. I'm going to make the first live Rosen trade. I'm buying at 34.47 right now. I bought the wrong amount. Hold on. Don't front me, motherfuckers. All right, thanks. I just lifted the 34.47. If you guys are watching that. This guy, all 1,000 shares. Anyway, they're not. Go look at the people on this board. They were all going to lose their jobs too, by the way, the board seats when they signed the deal. They're not letting him walk. It's going to be the smallest cut you've ever seen. It might be a big cut, but it'll be the minute they get the shareholder vote. So the way I look at it is they'll file the proxy for the shareholder vote. Assuming that gets done by the end of August, middle of September kind of thing. If he's willing to close immediately, maybe they would let him cut to $48 or $49. If he doesn't, they'll say, this is your one shot. Otherwise, we're just going to take you to the trial and you're going to close at $54.20. And Elon's going to say, you can save $5 billion, which is all out of your pocket, or you're going to lose at court. That's what his lawyers are going to tell him. And he's going to say what he's been doing rationally the whole time. Let's not forget, again, the wrong narrative has been painted. Elon's been rational the whole time. He's immoral. It's been immoral what he's doing, okay? Immoral and unethical. And he's disparaging people, and he's torching a company. But the rational thing to do, if you can do it because you don't care about your reputation, is this. He'll save $1 to $5 billion on a price cut that cost him $20 to $100 million to do. I think you're right about Elon. He wants to claim victory. He's just Trump. Whatever the victory is, I can assure you victory is not losing at 54.20 in court. Okay. Where Tesla stock plummets that day, goes down 25% that day. Right? He's not doing that. Everything he's doing is rational. Is Elon able to drag this down in court? No. Bueno, he's not. The court's going to set an expedited, the court will set the time frame, and no matter what is found through discovery or through whatever, that's when the hearing is going to happen. Elon is not able to drag things out in court. He can appeal it to the Supreme Court of Delaware. I assume they would hear that within a matter of weeks of a verdict. I also assume that Elon would then settle post-verdict, maybe for $1 cut or something, just to get it under his own control so he can sell his Tesla stock he has to sell. All right, let's see else what we got here. I'm on page 34. I've only read half of this. So let's read this out together. On May 17th, Musk tweeted without base explanation that 20% are fake spam, about 4 times what they're claimed, could be as much. In yet another breach of his non-disparagement obligation efforts covenant, Musk encouraged the SEC to investigate the actual. He did. Musk tweeted at the SEC asking them to investigate Twitter. In his merger agreement, he said he's not allowed to do that. Now, a bear might tell you this, okay? A bear might tell you that the most Elon can ever be on the hook for damages is $1 billion. Specific performance is a separate issue from the damages he's causing. He's causing lots of damages, obviously, to Twitter over and over again over the last 6 weeks. I have no idea. He's all in violation of the merger agreement. I have no idea how you separate those two. Whether some of them are damages, breaking the merger agreement from disparagement, and how many of them are damages, specifically not closing the agreement that you agreed to close. That's specific performance. The whole concept that some judge, I did hear something else that was really interesting. This is a hugely positive sign. I didn't know that the chancellor of Delaware, the lead judge in Delaware, a seasoned a judge, she decides who hears the case. So either she'll take it or she'll give it to her most seasoned, pit bull judge to make sure that the entire fucking state of Delaware law doesn't collapse. So there's no risk of the 8 or 6 judges in Delaware that it's some sort of lottery and some rookie gets it that's, only been there for a few years, that's terrified, that doesn't know what to do. Okay. Most likely she gives it to herself or she gives it to one of the most seasoned judges on the court. That's huge. There's no randomness in it, right? It's not this isn't like when you file a lawsuit in federal court and you might get like a pro-Trump judge or a pro-Biden judge. These judges are not political, first of all. Nothing political about any of this. And if they are Republican, they're Reagan Republicans. They're not MAGA Republicans. So the rule of law matters to them, as it used to most Republicans. They're the classical Republican, right? They're all Harvard, Yale, law-educated Republicans. And again, nothing about this is MAGA anyway. I'm just saying that's where we are now. We're at the point in the world where people think people like Trump can just get away with stuff. There's no law. You just can get away with it. Why are we bothering even debating the law or the merits of a case? Because it doesn't matter. What am I doing YouTubes for then? But the truth is, I'm not debating the case law. I've stopped doing that, right? If you noticed, everything in me is about what does the board do, incentivized to do? What does Elon Musk do and incentivized to do? And what does the judge do and incentivized to do? And the only one, well, all three of them you could debate, but the board, you could be worried about being incentivized to take the safe route, which is to settle for a fine. And I think I've cleared that up, or I've made my point why I don't see how they'll do that. But even if they do try to do that for $5 billion, that Elon, the middle one, is incentivized to win, not to minimize his losses, and he's not going to settle for a $5 billion fine. He's much more likely to take a $5 billion cut, which the board would agree to. And the judge is incentivized to do just one thing, to make sure Delaware law does not crater to zero. And anyone that thinks that a Delaware judge is going to tell the parties to come to an agreement on a fine based on what's transpired here is crazy. And Twitter doesn't have to do it. Twitter could force the judge to fine Elon Musk $1 billion for 2 weeks after signing a merger agreement, saying, I don't want it anymore, like a little child. That's not how these things work. You can't do that. What would happen if let me ask you a question. What would happen if the stock market went up 20% in May? Russia and Ukraine signed a peace agreement. No more war in Russia and Ukraine. Biden and Trump come out as long lost lovers. LGBTQI TB, the TB stands for Trump Biden. They're in love and they're moving in together and they're forming a new political party where now all political parties are aligned in their love for each other. And then finally, the Fed announces that they miscalculated inflation, and inflation is actually, we're in a deflationary period. Negative 2% inflation with the same gross domestic product. What do you think the stock market would do with that in May? It would be up at least 20%, right? Do you think Twitter would have said that they're no longer interested in doing that deal with Elon Musk? You're going to go to the courts, come up with some Elon Musk, he fathered some kids that they didn't know about, and it goes to the harm of the company, and it's wrong for him to own this property, and they go to court, and the judge says, listen, guys, I don't want to be involved in this. I don't want to force you to sell to Elon Musk. Can you just pay Elon $1 billion? And can we move on here? Because it's not my place to make you guys sell to him. This is a couples thing. I don't want to be involved. I mean, that's literally what bears are saying is going to happen. The judge is too scared to rule that he must close it. Because the judge is too scared about the precedents that will happen when Elon Musk, oh boy. That's my poor kid that just came out of surgery. Anyway, That's what the other side of this bet is. So you have two sides of this bet. You decide what side you want to be on. The one side is that the board and the judge are scared of Elon Musk. They're shivering in their boots of Elon Musk. Elon Musk is above the law and will never agree to close this merger no matter what happens in any court. And on the other side is the board and the judge are rational, normal human beings that will do the very obvious thing, which is follow through with the contract, make him have a verdict against himself, and they will force him to close. If you told me blindly what the stock price should be based on those two options, I would say it's 90% one, 10% the other. The truth is that there's a whole third part, which is Elon Musk settling before any of this happens, because Elon Musk is rational and knows that this is all bullshit, and his scorched earth tactics, they're done. He's got no scorched earth tactic anymore. Is he going to post a letter from the love child of Jack Dorsey that spam bots are 48%? What's his next play here? They're going to file a retort to the lawsuit. That's going to be hilarious. And what's his next play? At this point, do you prefer buying options? I own everything. I own a ton of stock. I own a ton of Jan 23 call spreads, 42, 47 call spread. That's my biggest position. Jan 23, 42, 47s, because I don't think they'll cut it below 47 under any scenario. And I think it'll all be resolved by then. Shit, I bought October 44, 48 call spreads today for 70 cents because I think that he settles sooner than later. And at 70 cents for 44, 48, I'm only paying like 20% for that to happen. And I think it's like 50 or 60 or 70%. Isn't BOD incentivized to pursue full specific performance? Fiduciary liability perspective, any lesser amount opens the door for share lawsuits. If losing court, shareholders might have won. So that's a great question, Think Blue. You could say that about every lawsuit and every time this has happened. What about Think Blue? Do you know anything about the Tiffany's and LVMH situation? They would have won that too. It was a slam dunk case, okay? And Tiffany's board still settled with LVMH for a 3% price cut. The reason why is bullies have an incentive in this structure to get away with this. Not get away with breaking the merger agreement, but to get away with dragging the merger on for many months past the closing date and causing massive uncertainty to the employees and the shareholders in the meantime. So a board has to balance what the shareholders want, which is certainty as soon as possible versus the likelihood, in this case, the certainty, I believe, that they'll win at 54.20. So if they cut to 45, 46, 47, I think they're breaching fiduciary responsibility. And I think it's very unlikely that they do it. Okay. I only use 47 as my absolute floor because stranger things have happened in the world. But in reality, the only way the board could get away with a cut here would be in the low 50s, 52, 51, 53. And Elon can say he saved some money and he can't wait to turn over. By the way, Elon won't even admit the spam thing wasn't real. He'll probably close on Twitter and say, oh man, there was way more than 5% spams on here, but I'm going to fucking solve this problem. I'm going to make Twitter the best place ever to shit on liberals. You know? What about the potential lobbying power of Elon's Silicon Valley pals? Like you said before, the world's a crazy place, maybe a bit tinfoil hat. Well, you know, someone mentioned to me that Evan, the former co-founder of Twitter, tweeted that he thinks that the board should fold. He said he was on the board 10 years ago, and if he was on the board, he would fold the Twitter right now. This isn't what we need. Well, he's probably friends with Elon Musk. He doesn't own any Twitter stock. and he's not on the board. So Evan can go fuck himself. Okay. Just like, Matt Levine, who I think is the GOAT, he doesn't own any Twitter stock. So of course he thinks it's in the best interest of the world that Elon Musk doesn't own Twitter. And I think that too. As a Twitter user, I don't want Elon Musk to own this either. But as a Twitter shareholder, everybody that, in the peanut gallery that seems to think that it's great if we let Elon Musk off, fuck that. Okay. So I'm not too concerned about these people that are yapping that aren't involved. Now, the board is filled with some very powerful people. And I think that this situation is, honestly, you do a lot of things in your life, but this situation will be one of the crowning achievements of their careers. And I don't think it's lost on them. They signed a merger agreement with a bully against what they wanted to do at the peak before the market collapsed. Well, the peak was last November, but you know what I mean. Right before the market collapsed. And now the same bully is disparaging all of them and trying to get out of it for potentially a small fine. We don't even know if he's willing to pay that. It's just, it's not possible that anyone's gonna get in any of their ears. Jack Dorsey's not even on the board anymore. So you have Silver Lake, who's that guy's one of the smartest people in the world. Okay. And he didn't have to stay on the board. He wasn't voted into the board. I don't know if you guys know this backstory here, but Egon wasn't voted back into the board because he was on too many boards. So the shareholder proxy services says he had to leave. And the board still put him back on it. This is post the deal happening. So you have one of the smartest people in finance on Silver Lake on the board. And then you have the rest of the board, which is, really accomplished executives in the world that are now being bullied and disparaged by this guy. And they have a rock solid case with no holes in it. If Silicon Valley was going to bully the board into caving, why did they sign a deal in the first place? That was what I was trying to tell someone yesterday. If the board is spineless and doesn't want Elon to own Twitter, which is what a prevailing thesis is, they could have figured out a way out of Elon from buying Twitter in the first place. They didn't have to sign an agreement with him. In fact, they could have stalled more. The market collapsed, and they wouldn't have sold it to him. They signed that deal pretty fast. So, can you explain the 42 and your choice of 42, 47 call spread? Yeah, I mean, every call spread has to have a start and an end. So if you go too low, you paid too much for it, right? So let's say I chose 41, 47. That incremental price I'm paying for the 41 versus the 42 is much higher than the price I paid for the 42 versus 43. So the goal of any call spread is for me to sell the highest I feel comfortable with for it to be fully in the money. I don't want to buy too low either. If I buy too low, then I'm paying too much for the call spread. For instance, I could buy a $35 47 call, 35.47 call spread. But I don't want to pay for the 35.42 call spread. That's very expensive. I'm not getting the same risk reward as I am for a 42.47 call spread. I don't care about the next $5 in Twitter. I don't care if Twitter's $40 in a few months, right? I only want to capture it if the event happens. And the only way that it's going to be above $42 is on a settlement or a deal closes. This is never going above $42 again unless they settle or a deal closes. So that's how I chose the 42.47. Additionally, in my most draconian scenario, I cut my legs off, they settle for $45 and I still make twice my money on a 42.47 call spread if they settle for $45. Anything above that. So if I do a 45.50 call spread and they settle for 45, I don't make anything. So that's why I don't have 45.50 on at all. I have 45.50 on, but I have a ratio. So I'm long one, I'm long two, short three. Here we go, Twitter. I'm not big enough in this. I should know magnitude, but I just don't Twitter. I'm messing around with magnitude for. No, I'm playing big in Twitter. It's a gigantic position. It's over 40% position. Ironically, I read somewhere if Elon write about bots, then Twitter ARPU has been underrated, or we make it even more valuable. Yeah, someone wrote that. I think Matt Levine wrote that. Think Blue, and I don't have a really comment on that. That concept there is that if Twitter really has many less MDAUs than they say they have, then two things: one, their average revenue per MDAU is much higher, and two, they have a huge, larger world to address. Right? There's what 7-8 billion people in the world. If instead of 200 million people that are on the platform, 100 million are on the platform, it's much easier to gain more users. That was what I think Matt Levine wrote or somebody wrote. The whole thing's ridiculous. Okay, MDAU stands for monetizable. You can't just look at an account, see how many of your followers are fake, and say that's how many spam bots are on Twitter. You can't just look at a Twitter feed. If I search for the word, Twitter in TweetDeck, and I see tweets, and I count which ones are from real people, which ones are fake people, we don't know which ones are being used as monetizable. Maybe Twitter doesn't block every person, but doesn't count some of them as monetizable. Maybe it's a gray area. Maybe they don't know whether someone's a spam bot or someone's real, but some are monetizable and some are not. We don't know shit how they calculate this. It doesn't fucking matter. Advertisers know what their returns are based on their spend on Twitter. They spend X, they get back Y. You don't get back Y from fake people, right? If I put up a pitch to sell a tent and I sell X tents, I know how many tents I sold from my ad. Okay? This is so fucking stupid. We have to completely stop talking about how there's any lawsuit here. There's no lawsuit here. Everything here is psychology. The board, Elon, and the court. That's why someone asked me if I'm a lawyer. You don't have to be a lawyer. The lawyers have told us there's no lawsuit here. Anyway. Oh, I'm exhausted. All right, let me see what else we got here. Oh, this is good. In a follow-up correspondence, it became clear that the limit Musk had bumped up against was not the result of throttling, but a default 100,000 per month limit on the number of queries that can be conducted. With his undisclosed team of data reviewers working behind the scenes, Musk had hit that limit within about 2 weeks. Twitter immediately agreed to and did raise that monthly search query limit 100-fold to 10 million, more than 100 times what most paying Twitter users get. That's about the what do you call it? The spigot that they gave to Musk. It's all just bullshit. This is also great. What about Tesla puts? I don't want anything to do with Tesla. I have no interest in Tesla. My play is Twitter. Tesla's always been a joke. I've never shorted Tesla, never owned Tesla. Don't come hurt my family over Tesla. I love your Tesla cult. I don't have a problem with Elon Musk. I have no interest in doing anything with Tesla. Why would I want to be involved with Tesla when I could just own Twitter? Right? Tesla might go down a lot because they have a bad quarter. Tesla's vastly overvalued. So yeah, sure. You can short Tesla, whatever. It's not my thing. So based on your expiries, are you thinking worst case lose by the end of the year? Yes. Yes. So I think this is going to be resolved very soon, actually. My gut tells me that this is over by October, that once the UK is done and the SEC blesses the registration statement, they agree to a price cut and he closes. But sorry, my gut doesn't tell. I think there's a good chance of it happening by October. But The law, I think the court will have a trial by November or December at the latest. I would guess more likely by November. And I think you could have a summary judgment. I think the court could just say, there's nothing here. He has to close. No point for a trial. Forcing you to close. That's how much he's flaunting everything. So I like the idea of playing, like I said, it's a tiny position, but those October 44, 48 call spreads. Sentiment changes so quickly. And he's being rational. Everything's rational. People are acting like everything that's happened in the last 6 weeks is irrational. Post him saying he didn't want to close. That was irrational. But once he said Twitter deal on hold, everything that's happened since then has been exactly what you'd expect to have happened. They were never going to cut this price before they got all the regulatory stuff and before they had everything closed. So there was never going to be a price cut between May and now. I think Matt Levine agrees that there's a good chance the chancellor issues a summary judgment. I didn't see him write that, but I'm not sure this will ever go to trial. I really don't. There's no trial. It's so blatantly obvious he's just flaunting law. They better hope that their response, they can prove how Twitter has not provided. Their only single argument would be that Twitter didn't provide the documents necessary to close the deal. And of course, that's not bot related. It would be something else. I break kids' legs. Come on, man. I don't fucking know what I would do in December or November. Where's the market? Where's Twitter trading? When is the trial scheduled for? Is the trial scheduled for May, January, December? I have to know when the trial is scheduled for to know how I would change my options. Dude, have you ever worked in this business before? You don't understand about expected value, about how odds are placed, about how models are made with estimating future cash flows. In this case, how can I possibly tell you what trades I put on in November or December without even knowing what the facts are in November or December? I'll let you know then. I generally don't roll over. The only time I've ever rolled over was with AXSM, because that one was really odd, and I didn't think that we were at a deadline at any point soon. So luckily with AXSM, I was rolling that over from January to March and then June, and then I closed it in June. But for the most part, I'm not a rollover guy. I let things go to UpX, and I see what happens. The CNBC purpose trying to find the least honest people to put on the air. Kara Swisher, James Stewart. I don't really understand what's going on with the media with this. And I said this before, not on Twitter maybe, and not on YouTube maybe, but it's very concerning to me how much disinformation I've seen in the financial markets, specifically with this, in very savvy newspapers and on TV. They're saying things that are so factually wrong, not objectively wrong, factually wrong, that if the media says this stuff factually wrong about things I know to be wrong, then I don't even know what is right when they're saying things that I'm not privy to. If they're talking about a war, or they're talking about sources say. This isn't about sources say. This is more about opinions. So I guess the moral of the story is, if they give you an opinion about what so-and-so is going to do in anything, they have no idea what they're talking about. I don't think they're lying. It's not made up sources. It's just there's so much false information. And I'm not mad about it. This is the reason why the stock's 34.50. It's fantastic. I didn't own this. I think I started buying it at 37. And I made it gigantic at this price level. Below this, it's 34.20 on Friday. Go look at the YouTube. So I'm not mad about the disinformation. It's fantastic. Anyway, all right, I'm going to go out with my wife. I still have to read 25 more pages of this. So peace. That's my take. We win. Bye.